and now more increasingly heat. Since 2011, we have a major disease outbreak in Eastern Africa called maize lethal necrosis, or MLN, caused by a combination of two viruses called maize chlorotic mottle virus and sugarcane mosaic virus. And when the people are just recovering from the onslaught of MLNs, in 2016, we now have, since 2016, the occurrence of the fall army worms, Podoptera, which is really causing a major devastation in almost 44 countries in sub-Saharan Africa. One more important factor we must also take into account is the access to market by African farmers. So this graphic here, generated by my colleague Kai Sonder in Mexico, shows what is the travel time required. The blue areas means relatively less travel, less than 1 kilometer or 1 hour, less than 1 hour travel to access good seed, versus the red areas, which means almost 24 hours to 85 hours a farmer has to travel to get access to inputs. So this is a very, very important factor. The lack of that local infrastructure frequently impinges on the farmer's ability to access high quality inputs. The cost of travel versus the value of seed. So it's in these conditions, CIMMYT, although its headquarters is located in Mexico, the International Maize and Wheat Improvement Center, but CIMMYT has been working in sub-Saharan Africa for the last 4 decades. So Africa is not new. A large part of our breeding operations are there in Africa. That's why I am the only global director of CIMMYT who is located in Nairobi, and my rest of my colleagues are all in Mexico. What makes CIMMYT such an important player in both Africa, Asia and Latin America? One is this diverse germplasm base. We have around 27,000 maize germplasm accessions in our gene bank, which are like a treasure for unearthing genetic variability for a large number of traits that are relevant for smallholders. In fact, our gene bank curator there is holding a very beautiful landrace here. Can anyone name that landrace? No? It's called Hala, J-A-L-A, it's written, but it's pronounced as Hala, 45 centimeter long each year. And every year there is a competition in the Jalisco province, which farmer grows the longest ear of Hala. So that's the kind of beauty you see in the maize diversity in our gene bank. Coupled with this, extensive phenotypic network in the tropics, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, products that make a difference to the smallholders, very strong partnerships with both public and private sector, and a dedicated and passionate team. These strong partnerships, many of the colleagues sitting here are my network partners in Africa, especially from the seed companies, and they know the value of this partnership, the value of this network. This has been built over decades, and this partnership, this strong phenotyping and testing network in sub-Saharan Africa has led to a release of more than 300 CIMMYT derived improved maize varieties across sub-Saharan Africa, more than 300. And from 16 companies which we used to partner with in 1990s, today I have more than 100 seed companies that actively partner with CIMMYT in scaling up and deploying drought tolerant and disease resistant maize varieties in sub-Saharan Africa. So Africa is indeed growing very strongly in terms of seed companies, but this development is not homogeneous. There are some countries which are doing very well on the seed sector, there are some which are moderate, there are some which are really weak. Every year, due to this extensive phenotypic network and the diverse germplasm base we have in the tropical context, we do release a large number of varieties through partners. None of these are released by CIMMYT. They are released by our public and private sector partners, possessing varied traits like drought tolerance, heat tolerance, nitrogen use efficiencies, triga tolerance, MLN resistance, maize streak virus resistance, resistance to a number of diseases. So these are the trait packages that are relevant for the tropical smallholders in Africa, in Latin America and Asia. In 2018 alone, CIMMYT through its partners have released 81 unique, genetically unique varieties across the tropics. 63 of these varieties are based on simid germplasm, and 18 were based on the IITA, our sister center in Nigeria. And this has not come through a few years of efforts. Breeding for drought tolerance in maize is almost 4 decades old, and using the extensive genetic diversity, constitution of pools and populations like Laposta sequia, Tuxpeno sequia, drought tolerant program yellow, drought drought program white, coupled with intensive recurrent selection in those populations, and a large phenotyping network, more than 100 hectares of dedicated drought stress screening sites we have in Africa, and more than 50 hectares for heat tolerance. So these two powerful factors lead to this continued pipeline of new varieties for African countries. In terms of drought tolerant maize, those varieties developed by CIMIT and IITA have been released across 20 countries in sub-Saharan Africa till date, and they occupy nearly 3.5 million hectares. Annually right now, despite Fala Miwam and its impact, 80,000 tons of improved drought tolerant maize seed is produced by seed companies in Africa. Is this 80,000 tons enough? No. As per my estimate, you require at least 300,000 tons of drought tolerant maize seed. That's why there is a huge opportunity for companies with passion and commitment to make a difference in sub-Saharan Africa. But this is one of the remarkable success stories in terms of developing and deploying climate resilient varieties, crop varieties in any continent. All this has come not because we work only on breeding. I have a dedicated cadre of almost 10 seed system specialists, 2 in Latin America, 2 in Asia, and 7 or 8 in Africa. The job profile of this seed system specialist is not to do breeding. They work on seed production research on our pre-commercial hybrids, conduct extensive regional on-farm trials, produce the breeder seed and pre-basic seed, and provide technical backstopping to our seed company partners on market segmentation, territory planning, varietal turnover, gender mainstreaming, and QA/QC. And that's how they have catalyzed and tracked the adoption of our improved varieties across sub-Saharan Africa. So this is an important message, as somebody pointed out in the morning. Research institutions should not be focusing only on breeding per se. That interface with the seed sector is extremely important in order to catalyze impacts. A similar work we do now in Asia. In India, for the first time, we have, in partnership with Syngenta, with a Syngenta female and a CIMIT male, developed an excellent drought tolerant maize hybrid. It's a low cost hybrid. It's in fact a 3-way hybrid which is as productive as a single cross hybrid. And this is licensed to 16 companies in South Asia right now. It's called TA5084 with a AAA logo. So these are in rainfed areas, if you have to really improve productivity in South Asia, Southeast Asia, and Sub-Saharan Africa, the focus should be on developing and deploying low cost, highly productive, climate resilient hybrids. And again, for the first time in South Asia, we developed a huge network of phenotyping sites for heat stress tolerance. And through these efforts in India, Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, in Hyderabad, one of the best sites for heat stress tolerance. For those who do not know much about Hyderabad, there are only 3 seasons here: hot, hotter, and hottest. So, if it survives, if you plant it in February and take it through May, June of intense heat, not just during the daytime but in the night time when the temperatures reach 35 degrees Celsius, and if a crop can still survive, if a variety can still survive, you can be assured that this can work anywhere in the world. In Faisalabad in Pakistan, I have a similar site like what I have in Hyderabad. With 2 sites, one in India and Pakistan, we are very good neighbors, by the way. We can produce excellent heat tolerant maize hybrids. So 23 heat stress phenotyping sites across 4 countries, more than 50 heat tolerant maize hybrids for the first time licensed in South Asia over the last 3 years, and 9 of these hybrids have already been deployed, 2 each in Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan, and 1 in Nepal, and several more are in pipeline. In order to have a powerful breeding program, you need to be able to exchange germplasm across Mexico to Africa, Africa to India, India back to Nepal, India to Africa, and so on. This active exchange of germplasm is very important to fight climatic stresses. But at the same time, you should be able to track which among these CIMMYT hybrids is being grown in Nepal and the same hybrid being grown in some other country. How do you do that? The product name could be different, the seed company could be different. We give geographically exclusive licenses to companies. So in order to overcome this issue, we introduced since 2017 the varietal identification number. It's a unique number for each of our hybrids. So a hybrid could be released in Ethiopia, the same hybrid could be released in Nigeria, but the varietal identification number could be same, but it is marketed by different seed companies in different geographies. So this is to track the progress, and at the same time, if a variety is released in 2 out of the countries, as morning someone mentioned about COMESA block or SADC block or ECOWAS block, then you can literally trade across this entire block. So this win number is very important. It has to be compulsorily displayed by our partners on each seed production bag. Problems will come as we keep increasing genetic gains. We will always face new threats too, like maize lethal necrosis, which started devastating the maize fields in Kenya in 2011, since 2011, quickly spread to Uganda, Tanzania, Ethiopia, Rwanda, DR Congo, and so on, Burundi, and even South Sudan. So what do we do? As an international maize center, I just quickly got some germplasm, virus resistant germplasm from Latin America, introduced it into Africa, and started in collaboration with Calro, Kenya. We put up a 20-hectare dedicated maize MLN screening facility at Naivasha, and through that, within a span of 5 to 6 years, we released 19 MLN resistant hybrids, 19 hybrids across Eastern Africa. Coupled with this, intensive efforts with NPPOs in Sub-Saharan Africa to stop the spread of MLN from Eastern Africa to Southern Africa or West Africa. This is perhaps one of the most successful stories. A devastating disease, we curbed the presence of this disease, we confined it to Eastern Africa, and we never allowed it to go into Southern Africa or West Africa. And that is really important, otherwise it would have been a real devastation. But at the same time, we need to continue with these efforts. MLN is kept under control, but we cannot eradicate such a viral disease. So my request to partners in Africa, please keep continuous vigil about this disease which can transmit through seed. That's why we established another quarantine facility in Mazove near Harare. Fall armyworm is now a major global challenge. Since 2018, it has started its wings in India, now Bangladesh, very recently Nepal, Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia, and then went into southern China, and most recently as far as into Indonesia. So fall armyworm is going to be a major threat for some of the maize smallholders. And this is a seed production field in Mozambique, and you can realize how much seed that particular seed producer will get, not more than even 1 ton. So we CIMMYT together with IITA, we established an international consortium, a research for development international consortium with about 45 members from all over the world who have integrated pest management expertise. And I organized a conference, international conference in Addis Ababa. Some of you must have participated, right? Good. In October 2029 to 31st in Addis, in the African Union campus, and more than 220 delegates from 30 countries, a strategic framework on how Africa needs to tackle this major challenge through an integrated pest management strategies. Now a few more thoughts. How can we further strengthen the maize breeding and seed systems in Africa? We need to do both scaling out and scaling up. Scaling out is just expanding the base, but scaling up is also equally important in those countries which have now started producing this improved seed. How many more farming communities can adopt these improved seed varieties? So seed companies have to play a very, very critical role in both scaling out and scaling up. The time to release of new varieties is still very long. And this, if you occasionally release a good variety once in 3 to 4 years, especially when the climates are changing so fast, you cannot give the farmers the best. So you do need to accelerate the process of varietal release and accelerate the varietal turnover process. This is a lengthy varietal release process in both Africa and several countries also in Southeast Asia. Kenya, for instance, takes actual time to varietal release 1.5 to 3.1 years, so 1.5 to 6 years with an average of 3.1. South Africa is relatively faster. Some of the countries like Tanzania, Uganda, Zimbabwe and Zambia are now doing quite well. But again, not just varietal release, from the time from varietal release to the time the farmer actually gets the seed from the seed company. If you add both of that, if you take 6 plus 5 years, 11 years, it's not good enough. Or 3 plus 5, 8 years, it's not good enough. An evolved seed sector is one where you do not take more than 4 to 5 years from the time that your variety is released to the time that you get into farmer's field. So that process has to be harmonized quite fast. We have to introduce new technologies to speed up the breeding process, like the double haploid technology. But I am very proud to say, in the entire tropical maize, Kenya is the first one to establish a maize double haploid facility. CIMMYT established this facility in Kibako in Kenya. Today we produce over 80,000 double haploid lines each year. It is, that kind of facility is not even there in the public sector, available for the national programs, available for the small and medium enterprise companies, anywhere, even in India. So that's why, thanks to Dr. Rajendra Prasad, we are going to replicate such a facility in collaboration with US Bangalore at UARS Kunigal. The process has already started. So my target is to complete this facility establishment by this year. But this is really going to be a big boost to the national programs in South Asia. We cannot have new business without by following the world model. So we established an international maize improvement consortium in Asia in partnership with seed companies. Today we have about 45 seed companies in India who are partners with us on this HICC Asia, and many of the partners are sitting here again. And a similar consortium I established in Africa in May 2018, and I was surprised to see 32 seed companies joining this consortium across sub-Saharan Africa, 32 companies. I thought maybe 10 to 15 companies will come forward, but you can see the hunger for new breeding materials in some of the seed companies. That's a very, very good sign. But the most important thing is targeted varietal replacement. That needs to be done a lot more through public-private partnerships, not through the old ways, but through new doors. How do we do that? Here is a beautiful example from Ethiopia. Ethiopia, by the way, has better maize productivity than India. It has reached 4 tons per hectare. India is still hovering around 2.7 tons per hectare. So within a span of 5 to 6 years, Ethiopia is outside South Africa is the first country to go into 4 tons per hectare. That's a remarkable progress. One of the major reasons is substitution of old varieties with new varieties. Look at this BH661, a CIMMYT derived in combination with EIR, a climate resilient hybrid. This has systematically replaced BH660, which was released in 1993, and the 2012 product now has almost 9,000 tons of production. And one of the best years, you can see the farmer holding BH661, a long and beautiful crop. So that's the kind of examples that we are seeing now increasingly in Eastern and Southern Africa, and we would like to see a similar experience in West Africa. The old varieties need to be replaced with newer genetics, and while doing so, quality assurance and quality control, this is really important. So CIMMYT has published recently, we have published a technical manual on how to ensure QA QC using not just morphological tests but also molecular markers. And with $3 to $4 you can do an excellent analysis of both genetic purity and genetic identity. and keep your QA/QC very firmly on the ground in the maize seed value chains. So friends, Africa is right now 85 to 90% three-way hybrids in Eastern and Southern Africa, within the hybrid bracket. But still we have a long way to go in West Africa, where OPVs are predominant, almost 95%. That situation has to change. India has moved into a single cross hybrid era in 1990s and is not looking back. So this is important for us. So you may not have a complete occupation of maize area in Africa with single cross hybrid. Over a period of time, Samiti is slowly trying to introduce low cost single cross hybrids with excellent female seed yields, and promoting diverse businesses is also an important aspect here. And the formal seed sector has to systematically take over from the informal seed sector for a brighter evolution of the maize seed market. I won't go into this slide, but seed producers, we can classify them based on productivity versus efficiencies. There are productive and efficient seed producers. There are productive but not so efficient producers. There are not productive and not efficient producers, and there are not productive but very efficient producers. So how do we move from these other three categories into a productive and efficient seed system? For that we need to address the bottlenecks in the seed value chain, including those organizational production bottlenecks, seed policy environment, demand side bottlenecks and marketing bottlenecks, which Dr. Kaundinya has very beautifully highlighted in his presentation. And these bottlenecks have differential impacts on seed producers by the size of their company and by their country. So we definitely need a multi-institutional approach. African seed companies, local, regional seed companies, together with international centers and national partners, they all need to work together for a more efficient seed production and processing capacities, improving seed marketing and distribution networks, reforming the seed policies and regulation for faster release of varieties, better quality control, liberalizing the seed trade and harmonizing the seed laws and regulations. So Samiti is laying stronger emphasis therefore on four different aspects: developing products that meet the diverse demands of the seed companies as well as the smallholder farmers, more rapid scaling and wider adoption of climate resilient varieties, not just quantity but focus on QA/QC through various approaches, and faster replacement of obsolete and old and climate vulnerable varieties with new and improved genetics. I thank my partners, especially in Africa, in Asia and Latin America, and the funding agencies like Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, USAID, Syngenta Foundation and the CRP Maize, and Samiti and IITA colleagues for their passion and commitment to this mission. Thank you so much.